Now, no matter how much skill you have, at the end of the day, how well you perform in a game is up to the developers. They are in charge of the rules, and sometimes they like to remind you of it by playing dirty. So let's have a chat about it. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 times video games changed their own rules just to spite you. Number 10, Zombies. Thief: The Dark Project. Now, Thief is a game series that puts great emphasis on stealth and finding creative solutions for outwitting your enemies. So, what does Thief: The Dark Project do? Well, it gives you a wide range of incredible tools to avoid detection and then takes them all away from you by introducing enemies that are immune to them halfway through the story. Cheers! Although the first part of the game does an excellent job of utilising its stealth mechanics, the Tombs mission decides to break all of these rules that you've learned about these abilities by introducing zombies. And unlike regular humans, zombies don't fall for your stealth tricks, meaning that all of these amazing powers that you've gained and mastered are completely useless. Yeah, isn't that great? Now all you're left with is either basic stealth or checking things at random and seeing what sticks. To make things even worse, the zombies tend to act quite erratically, so it's hard to predict when they might actually be able to spot you. It's honestly one of the worst parts of the game, which shouldn't be surprising considering it's a stealth section that robs you of all means of acting stealthy. Now that's what we call thievery. Number 9, Survive: Halo Reach. The role of objectives is to tell you what the game expects you to do, except that is in the famous finale of Halo Reach, where the game gives you an objective it knows you're never going to be able to complete. In the final showdown between Noble 6 and the entire Covenant, Halo Reach throws an infinite horde of enemies at you and then follows it up with a prompt saying, survive. This cheeky little moment is not only a violation of the oldest rule of gaming, but it's also a thorn in the side of any perfectionist who doesn't like to leave any objective unfinished. There's no way to beat the army that you're pitted against, as not only is it infinite, the game also makes new waves of enemies progressively harder to overwhelm, so that even seasoned players will eventually fall. You just have to accept the fact that this is the only objective you won't be able to complete, and then do your best to give the rookie a worthy end. You will fail, but at the very least you can actually blame the game for cheating you out of a success for once. Number 8, Time Travel: Dragon Quest XI. Dragon Quest XI is a unique entry in the series thanks to its very own time travel mechanics. It's also one of the most frustrating Dragon Quest games to play, as the time mechanic hits you out of nowhere with sudden rule changes that completely undermine your accomplishments and overall strategy. The time travel in this game sets you back in time to redo certain battles from the past, meaning that whenever you travel back, your character's levels are also reset to lower levels, rendering you significantly weaker. The mechanic appears suddenly as part of the post-story content, meaning that if you are leveling up your characters in hopes of having an easier time in the ending, well, the game will make all of this preparation appear completely worthless. The time travel strips you of everything, including certain story feats that cure your party members of negative perks, so it really makes you feel like everything you've done in the past, well, doesn't matter. The game just establishes that in the end, character progression just isn't a thing, so if you ever play it, make sure you don't waste too much time grinding for a maxed out character. Number 7, Valithria Dreamwalker: World of Warcraft. No matter how many gimmicks a dungeon has, no matter how many phases there are in a boss fight, the one unchanging rule of World of Warcraft's raids is that the healer heals, the tank tanks, and the DPS deals damage. However, there is one instance in the game where even this golden rule doesn't apply, and that's the boss fight with Valithria Dreamwalker. Found in the Frostwing Halls, Valithria Dreamwalker is a giant green dragon that is the only boss in the game who needs to be healed instead of hurt. That's right, in order to win this encounter, the party has to keep them alive by switching the roles of the healer and the DPS. The encounter is actually a pretty fun break from the norm, but at the same time it does ruin the carefully crafted composition of your team, which can lead to some frustration. It's the only fight where you have to plan for the healer to be the main damage healer and the DPS player, well, just keeping everyone alive by staving off the encroaching hordes of enemies around them. Well, at least the tank gets to keep on tanking, well, unless they charge straight into the enemy lines that they tend to do. Number 6, Final Act: Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines provides you with plenty of choices in how you want to lead your undead nightlife. Well, until, that is, it doesn't. You see, the first 2 acts of the game are an excellent role-playing experience, as the game almost always gives you different options for resolving conflicts. You can fight, you can sneak through, you can persuade people into doing things your way, or even just do a full pacifist run. However, since White Wolf rushed the development of the second half, the gameplay does become incredibly linear later on and renders all but one tactic viable. Whereas before, the rules of the game would allow allow you to be creative, the second half forces you into more and more combat situations, until even that is streamlined and the plethora of different ways in which you can battle foes turns into rows of boss fights that require you to use guns in order to defeat them. The ending sequence feels like a complete violation of the things that you learn in the first half of the game, and throws the rule of open-ended design right out the bloody window. It's the most disappointing part of Bloodlines that sucks all the fun out of it faster than any Count Dracula wannabe. Number 5. The Crafting Table Jump Scare, The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 does a lot of innovative things to keep its player base on their proverbial toes. The most notable of these breaks in the formula is the game's storyline, but they also happen in the sequel's gameplay. However, here they mostly exist just to spite you. You see, in the first game, the crafting tables are a sacred place where you're free to toy with upgrades and components to your heart's content, free from any attacks from clickers and raiders. It's easy to apply this experience to the sequel, especially since in the beginning most crafting tables you come across appear to be in isolated areas where no one can disturb you. However, eventually the game breaks the rule of the table's sanctity, and when you open the crafting menu in one particular area, a raider will suddenly attack you, giving you a heart attack and making you distrust any of the crafting tables you'll come across from this point. It's such a well-executed jump scare that you can't even really be mad at the game. Well, I mean, you can, but I think we can all appreciate, pardon the pun, the craftsmanship here. Number 4. Grim Fight, Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is an incredibly flexible game that allows the player to build their team however they want. Whether you create a balanced adventuring party or a quartet of chair-throwing barbarians, your strategy is pretty much guaranteed to succeed as long as you know what you're doing. There is one exception to this rule, however, a secret boss fight that utilizes its own set of rules that can break even the most well-constructed team. The secret fight with Grim in the Adamantine Forge requires not only a strong team, but also good inventory prep, as the boss is the only enemy in the game who's resistant or immune to pretty much every type of damage except bludgeoning. The golem is completely immune to all damage until it's doused in lava, and even then you can only hurt it with a handful of damage types, only one of which, bludgeoning, will deal any significant damage. If your team isn't built around any of these damage types and you sell all of your hammers, well then the fight with Grim becomes impossible, making it the only fight in the game that forces you to follow a strict strategy to win. Number 3. Respawning Allen, Rise of Nations, Rise of Legends. Rise of Nations, Rise of Legends is a steampunk spin-off of the historical real-time strategy game Rise of Nations. The title adds a lot of fantastical elements to the gameplay of its predecessor, and sometimes these supernatural additions switch things up so much that they straight up break the established rules, making you just want to pull your hair out. And most notably, this comes in the form of Dark Allen. You see, these are genie-like creatures that serve as the primary antagonist in the Khaleesi Desert missions. They come with their own unique mechanic which allows them to respawn after they're defeated. Now, this little feature goes against what you learn in the first act and changes the rules of the game so drastically that without cheesing the system, it's almost impossible to defeat them. You see, they respawn after just a few turns, which means that you can neither rush nor take your time with them, since as long as they have territory, they can easily come back and retake everything you've conquered. To beat them, you have to learn how to encircle them, which is a bit of a waste of time considering that it's the only moment in the game where you have to fight respawning enemies. Number 2. Guardian Ape, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. The rule of Souls-like games is that no matter how many phases the boss has, no matter how many painful deaths you've endured, the moment that you see the insert whatever the name the game uses for bosses here vanquished, you are victorious. Your struggle is over. And there's a certain kind of comfort when those messages appear on screen, which is exactly why Sekiro Shadows Die Twice breaks this rule to strip you of any semblance of security that you might have been deluded to think you had. In the infamous fight with the Guardian Ape, after you manage to bring this boss's health to 0, the ape will fall down and the Shinobi execution screen will pop up. However, as you're about to move away, the dead ape will pick up its head and immediately lunge at you, commencing the secret second phase of this boss fight. The second stage hits like a truck, and even if you do manage to survive it, you'll never be able to look at future bosses in the same way. Cheers, From Software. We really cannot have nice things, can we? And number 1, Aliens, Crisis. Thanks to all the powers that come with Crysis's nano suit, the first few hours of the game make you feel like a total badass. Stealthing through enemy lines, taking out entire groups with melee attacks, or traversing the map at superhuman speeds become basic tasks thanks to the suit's abilities, turning you into an unstoppable feat of science. But then the game brings aliens into the mix, and everything that you thought or learned up until this point gets flipped onto its head. You see, the aliens break all the rules in the game thanks to their own superpowered abilities that counter everything that your suit suit offers you. They counter your sneaking abilities, they counter your strength, they counter your resilience to damage, and are overall a painful, annoying, and somewhat boring enemy type. As soon as they appear in the game, most players lose, well, pretty much all interest in playing further, as they sap all the feeling of power out of the title and make you lose your mind trying to find a good tactic to get rid of these bloody things. Let's be honest, it's not very fun to play a game about wearing an overpowered suit when the suit doesn't feel overpowered. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 times video games changed their own rules just to spite you. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram and X, where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to speak to you soon. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome, and we'll chat soon.